the exhaustion of a mandatory smile, and the crushing weight of compulsory positivity. You are tired, are you not? Not simply tired from work or lack of sleep, but existentially weary from the relentless, suffocating demand to be happy. This is the cruelest, most paradoxical burden of the modern age. The pursuit of joy has become the greatest source of our hidden anguish. We live in a world where happiness is not a natural state of being, but a moral obligation, quantifiable metric, and a perpetual performance. We have all become actors in the vast theater of the self-optimized life, perpetually smiling, perpetually achieving, perpetually fine. But beneath this polished veneer, that deep, unsettling emptiness persists. A hollow echo in the soul that no amount of positive affirmation or curated social media perfection can silence. This is the truth nobody dares to whisper. The harder you chase happiness, the deeper you sink into suffering. The Russian literary giant Fyodor Dostoevsky, 1821 to 1881, saw this coming with terrifying clarity. Long before the advent of self-help gurus, mood-tracking apps, and compulsory motivational speaking, he diagnosed this relentless pursuit of pleasure and comfort as a fatal flawed disease of the modern soul, disguised as a cure. Dostoevsky's world was marked by poverty, penal servitude, and political upheaval. Yet his philosophical inquiry transcended his circumstances to challenge the very core of Western Enlightenment ideals, which promised a rational, comfortable path to universal contentment. This extensive exploration will delve into Dostoevsky's prophetic warning, demonstrating through his monumental works notes from Underground, Crime, and Punishment. In the Brothers Karamazov, embracing your deepest pain is the only authentic pathway to genuine freedom and meaning. Part I, The Tyranny of the Smile and the Crystal Palace critique the modern obsession with happiness is not merely cultural, it is ideological. It has become an injunction, a non-negotiable command that transforms natural human sadness, doubt, and complexity into categorical failures. This phenomenon is best described as the tyranny of compulsory happiness, apologization of normalcy in today's therapeutic landscape. Emotions like sadness, anxiety, and profound fatigue are swiftly pathologized. They are not viewed as integral, vital responses to the human condition or the world's inherent cruelty, but as defects, chemical imbalances, frequency misalignments, or personal deficiencies requiring immediate pharmacological or behavioral correction. If you are sad, you are not meditating enough. If you are anxious, you lack gratitude. This mindset denies the fundamental reality that human existence is inextricably woven with loss, absurdity, and tragedy. It demands that we live in a state of perpetual, performative euphoria, transforming every shadow into a moral liability. Dostoevsky's prediction, The Crystal Palace, Dostoevsky's most direct critique of this imposed, sterile happiness, is found in his 1864 masterpiece, Notes from Underground. The novella's narrator, the unnamed, bitter, and intensely conscious underground man, viciously attacks the utopian socialist visions of his time. He specifically targets the Crystal Palace, a symbol of rational perfection, efficiency, and scientifically engineered comfort, where all needs are met and all irrational desires are eradicated in favor of predictable contentment. The underground man rejects this paradise with venom, because the palace, in its pursuit of absolute comfort and security, eliminates free will. It removes the capacity for self-destruction, for noble error, for chaotic impulse, and for choosing pain over pleasure, simply because one can. Dostoevsky understood that the essence of humanity dignitize precisely in our ability to be irrational. He writes, "Man only likes to recount his misfortunes. Happiness does not enter into his calculations. To force man into a logically perfect, pain-free system is to strip him of his personhood, reducing him to a piano key or a predictable cog in a utopian machine. The happiness demanded by the Crystal Palace is a shallow, synthetic happiness purchased at the cost of human dignity. The amputation of the soul. The effort to maintain constant happiness necessitates a catastrophic act of psychic amputation. To be always positive requires systematically suppressing and denying vast, vital portions of your inner life, your legitimate grief over loss, your necessary anger at injustice, your profound sense of existential dread, and your essential loneliness. What remains after this amputation is not a light, unburdened existence, but a superficial, shallow life, lacking the crucial ballast that deep, felt emotion provides. The compulsion to be happy does not foster spiritual growth. It creates a character, carefully curated mask, that is perpetually afraid of its own shadow. The harder you try to fit into the Crystal Palace's formula, the further you drift from the true, chaotic, yet powerful nature of your soul. Part 2. The Great Suffering, the Pathology of the Inner Lie. The suffering Dostoevsky indicts most fiercely is not the external pain inflicted by poverty or circumstance, but the internal agony born of self-deceptions, the inner lie. This is the spiritual debt incurred by relentlessly attempting to appear well while feeling shattered. Chasm between image and essence. Dostoevsky understood the terrifying ease with which a person can lie to themselves, particularly about their own state of mind. The modern digital age has magnified this phenomenon exponentially. We inhabit a perpetual performance space where the external image of perfection is constantly rewarded with social currency, likes, validation, status. This social pressure forces us to widen the chasm between our internal essence, our fear, our emptiness, and our external image, our polished, smiling profile. The more you invest in this artificial happiness, the greater the internal pressure becomes. The inner lie creates a profound spiritual isolation. You cannot share your true pain because it threatens the structure of the lie you are presenting, and because society has signaled that your pain is a sign of personal failure. This silent, corrosive suffering, the pain that cannot be spoken, that must be buried and denied, is far more dangerous and debilitating than any external misfortune. Raskolnikov, Suffering as the Only Path to Conscience. The psychological trajectory of Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment serves as Dostoevsky's quintessential lesson on the necessity of suffering for conscience. Raskolnikov commits murder not out of greed, but out of a perverse, rational ideology, the belief that he is an extraordinary man above conventional morality, capable of stepping over ethical laws for a greater good. He attempts to abstract himself from his own humanity, yet, immediately following the act, Raskolnikov is gripped not by intellectual triumph, but by a consuming, physical, and psychological torment. His subsequent illness, fever, and delirious guilt are not merely narrative devices. They represent the soul's violent rejection of the rational crime. His suffering is the only mechanism that reconnects him to his moral core, compelling him to seek redemption, not logical justification. Dostoevsky demonstrates that the self-imposed agony is a moral necessity. The intellect may lie, but the soul, expressed through suffering, screams the truth. Suffering and pain are always mandatory for a broad consciousness and a deep heart. It is the fire in which the true self is forged. Part 3. The redemptive power of pain and the nature of true freedom. If suffering is not a penalty, but a profound necessity, how does one move from enduring it to embracing it? Dostoevsky offers a radical redefinition of freedom. Strop, a language, not a punishment for Dostoevsky. Istirap, suffering, anguish in Turkish. It's often used to denote deep psychological pain, is a language, a force of revelation. It is the crucible where the superficial self dies and the deep self is born. His characters who achieve genuine spiritual transformation are those who have passed through an inner hell, those who have fallen, suffered, confessed, and risen with a new, scarred wisdom. This perspective makes pain not an obstacle to be removed, but a teacher to be heeded. Freedom through acceptance. The example of Sonia Dostoevsky's characters, who embody the purest form of spiritual freedom, are not the wealthy or the powerful, but those who accept their hardship with dignity. Sonia Marmeladova Raskolnikov's eventual redeemer in Crime and Punishment is the ultimate example. Forced into prostitution by abject poverty, she is technically the most degraded character in society's eyes. Yet, she is portrayed as the most spiritually pure and existentially free. Why? Because she carries her immense suffering with profound dignity and unwavering faith. She does not deny her terrible reality. She confronts it head-on, without the self-deceptive illusions that paralyze the intellectual characters. This is Dostoevskian freedom. It is not the freedom to do what one wants, but the mature freedom to consciously choose what one is willing to face for the sake of something meaningful: love, faith, redemption. The paradox of enslavement. Conversely, the more you frantically try to avoid suffering, the more enslaved you become. You become a slave to external images, a slave to chemical intervention, a slave to the expectations of others, and a slave to your own fragile need for constant comfort and security. Suffering is a great thing. It should not be erased, for it is consciousness, he writes in The Possessed. The decision to stop fleeing pain is the moment you reclaim your sovereign will. You take control back from the external forces, the circumstances, the feelings, the expectations that previously dictated your mood and behavior. Freedom, therefore, is not the absence of pain. It is the conscious, dignified decision to journey through it. The great unasked question, in the call to sincerity, we have arrived at the ultimate, most challenging question, which negates the entire modern quest. What if you simply stopped trying to be happy? The reason this question terrifies us is that it exposes our deepest fear, that our pursuit of happiness is merely a sophisticated avoidance strategy. We seek pleasure not because we are ready to live it, but because we are utterly terrified of what we will find if we stop running the silence, the profound loneliness, the unprocessed pain hidden since childhood. We confuse the chase for relief with the quest for meaning. Dostoevsky urges a radical shift in our existential inquiry. The question is not, how can I be happy? A question ultimately concerning self-gratification, but rather, how can I live sincerely, authentically, and truthfully, even if it hurts? A question concerning integrity and meaning. True, profound, unshakable peace is not a reward awaiting you at the end of a pain-free life. It is found in the full, unconditional acceptance that pain is a necessary and integral part of existence. When you cease to fight against the reality of your own suffering, it sheds its toxicity. It ceases to be a tormentor and becomes, instead, a guide, a portal, and the truest mirror to your soul. The Dostoevskian mandate is simple, terrifying, and ultimately redemptive. Stop pretending, embrace the chaos, cherish the wound, and in the tragic beauty of your authentic suffering, you will finally find the freedom you were desperately chasing in manufactured joy.